the hospitality industry is about several things. First of all, it's a business. And you have to know the business aspect of running a restaurant. So you have to be somewhat of a business person and understand the percentages, because if you don't do that, then you shut the doors. The restaurant industry is a hospitality industry in the sense that it welcomes you, makes you feel good. All the amenities that one needs when one sits at a table, the proper wine, the proper service, the proper silverware, all of that is very important. The service, how a customer is approached and served is extremely important. So that's another big aspect of the industry, which as an owner, you might be, you might have one of these aspects that is the strongest, or being a chef. Now, being a chef is very important in the sense that, it is the profile of the flavor that ultimately the customer looks for or comes for. But you are in the kitchen and you don't get to see so you are kind of put aside. So if you are the chef and, if your name is on the front door, if you will, then you need a counterpart that really balances with you. But if you are the outside guy and the business guy, you also should know about the cuisine. You should know a little bit. You should know the timing. You should know the values. You should know not waste, all the freshness, all of that. You should be aware, even though you might not know how to cook it. As the song goes, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. New York is a tough challenge, but if you do the right thing, it's great rewards. And maybe a little bit of naivete, if you will, we decided we were going to do. We were so confident. I was so excited. And we did some planning, absolutely, budget planning and with the cost and all. We went over budget and all, but we managed to get back on track. And when we opened, I began cooking in the kitchen. I had assistants and all. And I began cooking the food that I thought was really representative of Italy and of what we eat at home. And it is that different cooking, that regional cooking, that sort of caught the attention of the press, of the journalists, and a lot of customers came to see what this woman is doing in the kitchen. 10 years with the first restaurant, by then we had two successful restaurants. We were in the suburbs. And I was already getting now into kind of a Lidia profile of cooking. And that profile was food that we ate at home. What I realized was that the chef was cooking Italian-American food that is not cooked in Italy. But it made sense. The immigrants that came to the United States, when they came, they cooked what they remember with the products that they found. And that gave birth to the Italian-American cuisine. But I knew that in Italy has 20 regions. Every region has a different cuisine, flavorful. So I decided that I was going to cook the real cuisine of Italy, what one eats at home in Italy, what we ate at home. And I began in those first 10 years adding little dishes in the new restaurant. And then I realized that people were really curious. So we sold those two restaurants. They were successful. And this was a business decision. And we leveraged all the profits into opening Lidia, which was in the middle of New York City and quite difficult. It almost didn't open because of over budgets and the difficulties that one might encounter. But there, I became the chef. And I cooked the regional food of Italy. So I was kind of a novelty. Who is this young woman chef, Italian chef, cooking what kind of Italian food? My beginning in the actual restaurant business was through my husband. I grew up in a restaurant situation. I grew up sort of making food, if you will, curing prosciutto, making olive oil, helping my grandparents doing all of that. And then ultimately, we came to the United States. I was a young immigrant and, I became American, went to school, and was proceeding when I met my husband, who was also from the same area, but he was in the restaurant business. And his goal was ultimately to own a restaurant. So when we did open a restaurant in 1971, I was quite young, and certainly I was not a chef, a professed chef. I cooked in my growing up. I also cooked while going to school, like most kids do. I worked in bakeries in the back of the house, as they say. I worked in restaurants, and I loved it all, but I continued with my education. But when my husband opened, he needed my help. He says, and I was kind of excited. I wanted to sort of go back to something that I felt good about and felt close. Of course, being 22, I think we opened our first restaurant. I was not a chef by all means. I cooked for the family. I loved cooking, but being a professional chef running a restaurant is quite a different story. So we did hire a chef, and ultimately I realized that I needed to get my hands into the actual cooking of the food, and I became his sous chef. And for 10 years, I worked alongside our chef, really honing my skills as a professional chef running restaurants. And then from then, I realized also as well how much I needed mentoring and what kind of food am I going to cook? What is going to be my profile? And so I kind of honed all of those skills for the 10 years that we had our first restaurant. Well, it was also, working with the seasons, of course, is, for example, fall, mushrooms. And mushroom, you could find plenty of champignons and whatever. But, I wanted the ceps, the porcini, the hen of the woods, those really woodsy kind of mushrooms. And to the point that I was going foraging myself because I used to do it with my grandmother. But slowly, you found the Italian sort of community doing that foraging. And I would commission them, get me that, or the game food, venison, the hunters. Finally, I got a good piece of, actually they would bring the whole venison, the whole deer to me, and we would, of course, now it's not permitted, but at that time, I kind of looked within the Italian community for the foragers, for the hunters, whatever, and had them bring. So fall is always a beautiful season for cooking. Fall was felt especially happy when fall came around. I have many young people coming from high school or from culinary school, and they come and sort of ask for advice, how and where should they be going? Well, I think the number one is the importance of you as a person, because if you go into this industry and you want to be a leader, you need to have certain qualities. And at the very beginning, you really have to invest in yourself. In an education, I recommend that they go to a university and educate themselves in something that they love, in the arts, in culture, whatever. That's all part. It adds to you being in the hospitality industry. Then go on into a professional school. Did you want to go to a culinary institute if you really want to hone your skills, or go to a service institute? Traveling is extremely important. Go and experience other cultures. Today's world is such a small world. And what our customers in America are looking for those experiences, for those ethnic experiences. And they do travel, so they know the authenticity of those experiences. So if you are going to engage in that culture's kind of food or service, you better have been there, seen, and bring it back. And I think one of the most important is to choose mentors throughout your career, as you're building yourself and your career. To choose to single out people who you really admire, whose work you admire, whose success you admire, whose flavors you admire, and find a way to work with those people, even if you have to give time of your own and be, chefs are very accepting of people, young people especially, that are enthusiastic, that are passionate, that want to learn. So make your way to that mentor that you want, work with them for a period of time, and change mentors so that you can really round yourself up. It was, for me, it was such an honor to have been invited to cook for Pope Benedict, and then when Pope Francis came as well. But maybe just to explain how I got to be chosen, is not because there's many good chefs out there that can cook as well and better than I can. I, being an immigrant and having been helped but by Relief Service, the Catholic Relief Service. As I grew in my career, in my position, I tried to give back as much as I can. So I was involved with United Nations Female Organization, and we would do a fundraiser every year in the delegates' dining room. And this is for these microloans that they provided for women in third world countries. And I thought that was wonderful, that a seamstress having a machine could triple her income and feed her family and so on. And there I met, at the United Nations, I guess at this event, the nuncio. The nuncio is the delegate from the Vatican to the United Nations. And I guess when the popes were coming, when the Pope came, the first Pope, he felt maybe I would be, first of all, Italian. And, he saw this element of how I cooked. And so I accepted and I was thrilled. And the first time was a bit I was uptight. What menu, whatever. The question is that popes don't eat outside. They live in the nuncio's house, wherever they are. They travel, they sleep right in the same house. The kitchen was upstairs, they were sleeping upstairs. So it was kind of a family situation. And they eat there. All their meals are cooked there. So I moved in, the team moved in. And we began, the first communication was with the Vatican. So the Pope is German. So I come from an area of Italy, northeast, that was under the Austro-Hungarian. It's sort of borders with Austria. So it has a Germanic and also a little bit of a Slavic tinge. So I did my research. Pope Benedict's mother was a chef. So I said, he knew his food. And I chose to go ethnic. I made sauerkraut, I made spetzels, I made strudel for him, and goulash I made. And he really appreciated it. He really recognized the flavors. He actually said, these are the flavors of my mother. Well, I think a chef should first invest in themselves. Is, like honing a good knife. You got to hone yourself and you got to know the techniques, know the values in the kitchen. Of course, today, science is very important, knowing the kitchen. Nutritional values are very important. And what is very important is what kind of profile as a chef do you want? What kind of flavor profile? Do you want a regional? Do you want to go back to your kind of descendants? Do you want to go to your heritage? Is it Spanish? Is it Italian? Is it Asian? Or do you want to mix something? But whatever you want to do, you need to learn it from a pro. You need to go and search for mentors. Spend time with those mentors and take in all the values that you want from that mentor and develop your palette of flavors as a chef. And then go on and cook and look for the appropriate ingredients, the value of the ingredients. Because as much as we, talk about chefs and praise chefs, the kitchen is more than 50% of the products. I mean, I'm a chef and I could do nothing and if I don't have a product. If I don't have a proper product, I can't transform that product. It's very difficult. What did I learn growing up in and around food? My grandmother had a little trattoria, if you will, seasonal trattoria in a small town, and she fed the workers or the people that passed by the town, the mailman, the milk delivery, whatever they needed something. But the beautiful part of that was that she grew everything that she served, from the vegetables to the meats, to the chicken, to the eggs. So my learning curve of owning restaurants and food is really what we today kind of aspire to, and that is to be close to the source of food and to use it seasonally. Well, I grew up in a setting of growing up with grandmas in hers. So ever since I can remember, up until 10 years old, I was running around grandma and helping her, whether it was feeding the chickens, getting the eggs, milking the goats, running the water when the slaughter of the pigs. I was involved in all of that. And when the workers came in the trattoria, actually being the kind of the delivery of the breads, of the wines, or whatever. So, food for me was a way of living from since I can remember. Yeah, one of the rewards of being successful in the restaurant hospitality, if you will, this store ideas is precisely the fact that you do influence a lot of people, that you do mentor, you become that mentor. And, as much as an owner, you hate to see a good worker move on, but it makes you feel good because you feel like there's a little piece of Lydia or Italy across the United States, and it feels good to be the generator of these kind of great energies, food energies. Let's take the food industry as a whole. It's the second largest employer in the United States. Therefore, there's plenty of opportunities in our industry, different aspects of it. Let's focus on the hospitality industry. There is so many aspects of it, from a restaurant to a fast food shop, to a hotel with a restaurant, to a bed and breakfast. It's endless what you can do. But there's one common denominator, I think, that uh, one needs to really succeed in that, and that is to love people, to have passion for what you do, and to really be ready to roll up your sleeves and work hard and work long hours. Well, being a chef, you would think I focus on that plate. But I think what people are really missing most is the social aspect, the get together at the table, eating with family, with friends, the communal aspect of eating food. It's so important because when we eat, we communicate in a different way. Eating opens us as human beings to a very basic a natural state of taking in nourishment. And our defenses are down when we eat. We are willing, we want to eat, we want to enjoy, and we want to take this nourishment. And with that comes also the discussion that happens at the table, emotions, information, family relations. So I think that eating communally, not by yourself, fast eating it takes away a little bit from that, although it's a necessary situation in today's world, everybody's. But the making of the time to make eating a social situation. Being from a border region has its difficulties, hence the war and hence fleeing and immigrant. But it also has its positives because you get to understand other cultures. On the border, usually you speak 2 or 3 languages. There's one common language that you speak at home. Ours was Italian, but I spoke then Yugoslavian, now Croatian, a little bit of German. So, and the food reflects that because the borders did move through the times and the different invasions. And, invasions bring culture with them. The people that come and occupy want to eat what they, so that area does reflect the sort of the Slavic with the sauerkrauts and cabbages and all of that. And the Germanic culture in the sense of the goulashes and the spätzles and so on. So it's, border situations are problematic as we see in today's world. All the borders are fought over somehow, but also they have their colorature, if you will, in the culinary world. There is, my cuisine is rooted and based in those memories, in those flavors. And the products are not the same, especially here. So you try to come as close as you can to my memory, the flavor memory that I have stored from those years. One of the things that I try is I remember the freshness of the eggs and the flavor of the olive oil, because we made our own olive oil too, and when spring came, the foraging of the wild asparagus. So a frittata of that oil, those eggs and the wild asparagus is something that I've been trying to recapture forever. And I get close when I go back there and I go forage for those asparagus. And I get one of the neighbors there to get me their fresh eggs. So I'm still reaching out for those flavors because those flavors are memories. Food halls have become sort of a phenomenon, if you will, a social phenomenon across the United States. I think that we were one of the first when we brought Italy to Manhattan, and that is 11 years ago. And it was not an intended program, because a lot of time being in business and growing in business is seeing an opportunity and then placing that opportunity correctly and making it happen. I had heard Oscar Farinetti, who is the brainchild of this concept, had opened an Italy in Torino, this mega stores that had restaurants in it that had fresh produce, fresh fish, and you could shop, you can have coffee, whatever. And I was very curious. I had gone to Torino to the slow food convention with Carlo Petrini, who is the founder, this consciousness to artisans, keeping the Italian food artisans alive and growing. And I was curious and set up an appointment with Oscar. Says, gee, I want to talk to this guy. Again, you need to pursue your curiosity. You need to find out. You need to research. And then the opportunities come when you do that. And we sat down. He showed me around. We had lunch. I came back. He came to the United States. And ultimately says, Lydia, I think that a concept like this would do very well in New York. And I said, it certainly would. So we began our discourse on how to partner and ultimately open Italy in New York. What 52,000 square feet of Italian food, that's big chunk of real estate to be dedicated to Italian food. But the divisions were so, they just made sense. And that is that we had all of the fresh produce, all of the fresh meats and fish. Now, that we couldn't get certainly from Italy. So we really researched in and around our area for the artisans that were already flourishing, the artisan, the fishermen, the farmers. What I think was the backbone of the concept was that we used all the slow food products from Italy. So slow food products, again, is the endorsement of an artisan that they are continuing the tradition of that product. But the artisans didn't produce big volumes, so Italy was an ideal place. So we have under our roof the largest collection of artisanal Italian food products. And then we have a place where you can experience that. As restaurants, we have fish restaurants, we have meat restaurants, we have the panini restaurant, we have the pizza, we have the gelateria, we have the espresso bar, just like in Italy. So the whole area feels very Italian, smells Italian. Mm-hmm. And added to all of that, we brought Italian expertise. Every one of these sections had to begin with an Italian master that would bring, and we took on the American counterpart and mentor them and train them in that. And we continue to do that. Mm-hmm. On a regular basis. The Italian masters come here and continue the education of authenticity of the real Italian flavors. And we grow. If there's anything new coming up in Italy, we make sure that we bring it here. So I think that, Italy is as genuine as you can get in really experience the Italian flavors, the Italian food artisans, because we have also school that if you want to learn more about them, you can enroll in our classes, pasta making. We have a lot of tastings all around the stores, which is very important. The customer has to know how it tastes before he buys it. Then the customer has to know how to use it. So you have to give them instruction, whether it's school or whatever. Ultimately, they have to taste it. And so if you put all those elements together, the customer says, gee, I can do that. And so the store continues to flourish, and all those different departments make sense.